أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. صلوات على محمد وآله. Human beings have been created by Allah Azza wa Jal and have been placed in this earth as khulafa, as representatives, as vicegerents. And therefore, when they consider their position in this world and they look at their surroundings and they look at their creation, they realize that they have a mission and a goal in life. Allah Azza wa Jal, being a wise creator, has not created human beings out of sport and play. It was not that He was lonely, na'udhu billah, or that He wanted to experiment, therefore He created us. Rather, there is a mission and a goal behind our creation. So as we look at each other and we look at the world around us and we look at ourselves and we consider our Creator, we realize that we have certain responsibilities. We have a responsibility towards Allah. We have a responsibility towards ourselves. We have a responsibility towards other human beings, and we have a responsibility towards the other creations of Allah Azza wa Jal. So tonight we want to look briefly at these 4 kinds of responsibilities that human beings have, beginning first and foremost with our responsibility towards our Creator, Allah Azza wa Jal. Of course, we know our first and foremost responsibility is that we do not ascribe partners to Him and we worship only Him and depend only on Him. However, for that level of dependence to be cultivated within ourselves, what we need is certitude, certainty, yaqeen. Because when a person has yaqeen, the way he or she behaves is different from the way a person who does not have yaqeen behaves. A person who is in doubt does not behave like a person who is sure and certain. And that is why we have a beautiful narration from our first Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. in which he says, Man ayqana bil khalaf jada bil atiyah. One who is sure and certain that he will get back a repayment is very generous in giving. And therefore, if we want to cultivate that certitude and that certainty within us in relation to Allah Azza wa Jal, we have to be certain about His existence, number one. And we have to be certain about the validity and the truthfulness of His promises to us. If Allah has promised us Jannah, we should be sure that if we follow His commandments, we will attain Jannah. If Allah has promised us that He will punish those of us who disobey, we should have that certainty within us that indeed this punishment will come to pass. And once that certainty is cultivated within us, our actions will change. Allah has promised, if you donate something, if you give something in this world, I will give you 10 times. Those who are sure do not hesitate to give, because they know they will get 10 times back. Rabia al-Adawiyya, whom we had mentioned a few nights earlier, that woman mystic, the famous woman mystic of Islam who lived many years ago, almost 1,000 years ago, she was known for her piety, and therefore she would get visitors from time to time. One day, two very important religious personalities went to visit her. The VIPs of the religious world of that time paid her a visit. And being a poor lady, she did not have much to serve them, so she only had 2 flat breads, noon, 2 types of naan. So she put 1 naan in front of each of these guests. At that moment, somebody knocked at the door. When she opened, she saw it was a poor beggar. So she went and picked up those 2 flat breads and gave it to the beggar. Now you can imagine, she has already served the 2 gentlemen who were there. They hadn't started eating yet. But the food had been placed before them, and when the beggar came, she immediately picked up the food and gave it to the beggar. So they were surprised, but they didn't say anything. Soon after, there was a knock on the door, and a female servant came and said to Rabia, my mistress has given you this. So Rabia opens it, and she sees it is noon or naan, flat bread. So she counts, and she sees there are 18. So Rabia says, no, there's a mistake here. Go back to your mistress. Maybe you have come to the wrong house. This is not for me. She insists, the servant insists and says, no, my mistress has sent this bread for you. But Rabia says, no, this cannot be for me. So the servant girl goes back again, and after a little while she comes back and she gives Rabia the bread. This time she counts, it is 20 flat breads. So Rabia says, yes, now this is for me. The reality was that that servant girl had pocketed 2 of the breads. The mistress had sent 20. And so those 2 religious personalities who were witnessing all this asked her, Rabia, first you took the bread that you had served us and gave this beggar. Then this servant girl came and you said, no, this is not for me. This cannot be for me. And now you have accepted it. So Rabia said, it is very simple. I was sure that if I give these 2 breads, I will get 20, because Allah has promised if you give, you get 10-fold. And when she brought 18, I knew there is something amiss, because if Allah says 10-fold, nothing less, 10-fold. And therefore, when a person is certain about what Allah has promised them, then they behave in a completely different manner. Those who do not believe, those who are not sure, those who doubt, their behavior is different. The people of Thamud, the people of Salih, if you look at their story, you find it is slightly different. It is the story of those people who did not believe in the punishment of Allah, in the threat of punishment from Allah. And that is why when the punishment came to them, according to the riwayat, we are told that they had punishment which came gradually for 3 days. تَمَتَّعُوا فِي دَارِكُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ. Stay in your homes for 3 days. On the first day, their faces became white as cotton, the riwayah says. On the second day, their faces became red, blood red. And on the third day, their faces became black. And then finally, the adhab came on them. Because they were not certain. And when they saw all these changes, they became certain that now the punishment is going to come. But by then, it was too late. And so, if we want to think about our responsibility towards Allah, that we don't ascribe partners to Him, that we believe in Him and are sure, that we have certainty, then we have to cultivate that yaqeen in our hearts. That is how we will be able to fulfill our responsibility towards our Creator. What about our responsibility towards ourselves? Our duty towards ourselves. That is also a very important thing that we need to consider. Is it that we just come into this world and we work hard and we struggle and we slog day in, day out to acquire wealth so that we can have a bigger house and a bigger car and then a second car and then a second house and so on and so forth? Or is there something more important to this? When we think of our lives currently, we will find that we are struggling for material ends, for material goals. Allah is the one who has guaranteed our rizq. He is the one who has guaranteed our sustenance. Yet we spend so much time worrying about what we will earn tomorrow, how we can expand our businesses. It is not wrong. It is not wrong, but when it takes you away from the goal of your creation, which is to attain perfection, then it is wrong. This world is just a place where you sow the seeds for the akhirah. The life is in the akhirah. The life is not here. This is just a temporary place. It is like a transit lounge where you spend a few hours and then you leave. It's quite interesting how much people think about this world. There was a fisherman somewhere in an island, say Zanzibar, for example. And he used to go daily and fish. And then after he caught the fish that he required for that day, he would come and rest on the beach. One day, a tourist happened to be passing by, and he saw this fisherman lazing on the beach, having a nice siesta. And he asks him, "What do you do to earn your daily bread?" He says, "I'm a fisherman." "So why aren't you fishing?" He says, "I have caught enough fish for the day, so I'm resting." So the man said, "Look at you, you're wasting your time. How many fish do you catch in a day?" He said, I catch three fish in a day, which is sufficient for me and my family." He said, "Look, let me tell you. Let me give you some advice. I am a marketing manager. Listen to me, my golden words of free advice. Instead of catching 3 fish in a day, catch 30 fish. Keep the 3 and go and sell the remaining 27 in the market. Do that continuously for a few days, and when you have earned enough, then you can hire someone else to catch some more fish with you. So the fisherman looks at him and says, okay, and then what? He says, then you will be 2 people catching fish. So you can double your productivity. He says, fine, and then what? He says, then you can have a whole fleet of fishing boats going out to catch fish. He says, then what? Then he says, then you will become a multi-millionaire. He says, okay, that's a good idea. And then what? He says, and then you can retire. So the fisherman thinks to himself and says, okay, what do people who retire do? He says, they rest on the beach. He says, but I'm already resting on the beach. I'm catching 3 fish a day and I'm resting on the beach. You want me to go the whole full circle and come and rest on the beach? That is the case that we are in. We want to struggle and strive and struggle to earn more, and it just remains in our bank accounts, bloated bank accounts, which we will have to answer for when we die. And so our thinking needs an adjustment. We need an attitude adjustment when it comes to the way we think about ourselves in this world. Someone sees our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, carrying some provisions on his back. So he asks him, Yabna Rasulillah, where are you going? He says, I am going, these are my preparations, I am heading out for a journey. He says, okay, may Allah be with you. The next day, that same companion sees the fourth Imam in the masjid. He comes and says, Yabna Rasulillah, I thought yesterday I met you, you said I'm going on a journey. So the fourth Imam says, yes, those provisions were for a journey, but not a journey of this world. A journey of the hereafter. A journey of the akhirah. This is how we need to think. We need to think about the real life, the true existence of a human being, which will come in the hereafter, not in this temporary world. And therefore, once we understand this, then we understand the responsibility that we have to ourselves, which is to work towards the goal of our existence in this world, which is to attain proximity to Allah, to attain perfection, to prepare our hereafter. And then we come to our responsibility towards other human beings. There is so much to be said here. There is so much to be said. If you look at the riwayat, you find lists upon lists of our responsibility to fellow human beings, to fellow believers, even to non-believers. What is our responsibility? We cannot talk in this brief time about our responsibility towards all other human beings. However, there are 1 or 2 aspects that we really need to think about. The first is our responsibility towards those who are facing injustice in this world. What is our responsibility towards those who are oppressed in this world? We have a responsibility towards them. If you look at Surah Al-Buruj, you will find the story of Ashabul Ukhdud. There was a king in Yemen called Dhu Nuwas. Dhu Nuwas converted to Judaism, became a Jew, and he changed his name to Yusuf. And when he learnt about how the Jews had been persecuted, he became very bitter. And he heard how the Byzantines had been persecuting the Jews, so he decided that now I will take revenge. So he started persecuting the Byzantine traders who would pass Yemen. And then he came to the Christians of Najran. And he told them that if you want to remain within Yemen, you have to convert to Judaism. You have to become Jews. Either that or I will kill you. I will burn you alive. And the Quran depicts that story beautifully. قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ النَّارِ ذَاتِ الْوَقُودِ إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ. The people of the ditch, ukhdud means a ditch. The people of the pit, the ditch that was dug. It was a huge ditch. And then the fire that was lit inside it was a great fire. An-nari dhatil waqud. Allah says in the Quran, a fire that had so much fuel inside. So you can imagine a huge fire. This is what Dhu Nuwas had prepared for the Christians who did not accept to become Jews. And then what were people doing? Those people who were living at the time of Dhu Nuwas, they were sitting outside that pit, outside that ditch, and they were witnessing as the Christians were being thrown into the fire. Men, women, children, the aged, everyone, one by one. They were seated and they were witnessing. إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ. They were seated. وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ. And they were just witnessing what was happening to the believers. Just quietly looking at it. No response. This is the way they have been depicted. Now if we bring it to our times, we find many of us can be likened to these people of the Ashab al-Ukhdud. Where Muslims and believers are being persecuted around the world, yet we show no reaction. We are indifferent. Our brothers are being killed in Syria, in Iraq, in Pakistan, and in Bahrain, and in so many places. Daily we hear, daily. One day 50 killed, one day 20 killed. It has become as if now we have become habituated to this news. It doesn't affect us anymore. So then what is the difference between us and those Ashab al-Ukhdud who are sitting there and watching as people who are being burnt alive? I do not say pick up banners and go into the streets. Maybe that will not be possible, but at least to do something. Do something. At least send an email. At least speak to one of your friends. At least pray for them. Nothing. This is one of our responsibilities towards our fellow human beings. Another one of our responsibilities towards our fellow human beings is to assist them in times of need. Those who have been given will be questioned on the day of judgment if they do not help those who haven't been given, if they do not help the less fortunate. How many times have we heard from the Jum'ah khutbah the importance of caring about the orphans and the widows? The poor people in the community, outside the community. We are responsible. We have a collective responsibility and we have an individual responsibility. And everyone cannot help in the same way, but everyone can help in some way. Abu al-Hasan Isfahani narrates an incident that happened in his lifetime, which is quite interesting. He says, one day I attended a funeral and I saw a young man crying and weeping bitterly at that funeral. So I assumed that this young man must be the relative of the person who has passed away. So I went to offer my condolences. When I went to offer my condolences, I asked him, "Are you related to the person who has passed away?" He said, "No." So I asked him, "Then why are you crying so bitterly? Why are you weeping?" So this young man tells Abu al-Hasan al-Isfahani that actually there is a long story behind this. And then he starts relating to him what had happened. He said, there was a time in my life when I was in dire straits. I had a lot of financial difficulty. I was in a very tight position in my life. And being a believer, being a mu'min, I could not do anything that was against the teachings of Islam. And I had my pride and my honor, so I could not ask anyone for assistance. One day I came to the masjid and I was praying next to someone. Now that person who was praying next to me, he took out some things from his pocket and kept them on the place where he prays. Many times we find many people do this. If you have bulky things in your pocket, in order to pray comfortably, you remove them and keep them outside. So this man took out some things and he kept them outside in the place where he was praying, and I was praying near him, and I noticed that amongst the things that he had kept, there was a ring that looked to me to be very valuable. Now as I prayed, shaitan came and put waswasa in my heart and said, if you were to just take that ring in the state of salah, that man wouldn't notice and you would be able to solve all your problems, pay off all your debts, solve all your financial difficulties. And he said to the scholar, Abu al-Hasan Isfahani, that I am a true believer. So I was battling with myself. I said, how can I steal? I cannot steal. I have never stolen in my life. But this was a situation where I was desperate. So he said, in the last rak'ah, because in my salah, in the 3 rak'ahs, you can imagine they were praying Isha prayers. So in the first 3 rak'ahs, I was battling with myself whether I should take that ring or not. Take the ring, don't take it, no. And in the last sajda of the last rak'ah, I decided to do it, and I just put my hand and took the ring. Now when the Imam finished his salam, I wanted to stand up and rush out before that man would know what has happened. The moment the salam finished, the man put his hand on my shoulder and he said, don't worry, you can keep the ring. Keep it. And if you need any other assistance, let me know. So he said that I was shocked. Not only did he realize that I have pocketed his ring, but he allowed me to keep it and he was ready to help me further. And so I sat with him and he asked me, what is the problem? You are a believer. Why did you have to go to these lengths? And I explained him my situation, and he helped me so much that today I am where I am because of this man. And that is why when he passed away, I was weeping so bitterly. This is a true event that happened, that has been related by one of the scholars. It shows us that we have to help one another, and everyone does it in their own way. Some may not have the hearts to forgive a person who is trying to take from them. But we should help one another however we can. Muqaddas Ardabeli, that scholar I told you about some nights ago, he was a poor alim, he was not a rich man. And people would gift him cloth, imported cloth, which was very, very valuable at that time. And he would make an amama, a turban with that cloth, and he would go out. And if anyone came to ask him for assistance, he would take out the amama and cut a piece from it, 1 meter or 2 meters, and give it to that poor person. It was something valuable at that time. And sometimes he would return home without the amama. Meaning that everyone can do something. Everyone may not have the ability to financially assist those who require help, but we can assist them in any way possible. Everyone may not be able to do something for those who are suffering injustices, but everyone can do something. In the least, support those who are doing something. If not by your encouragement, then at least don't be against them. There are some people in the community who are doing the good work. Support them, encourage them. And that is why we hear a beautiful narration that we heard even in Karbala in Arba'in from the lips of Jabir ibn Abdullah, where he said, "Man ahabba qawman aw man ahabba amala qawmin hushira ma'ahum." The one who loves a people or the deeds of a people will be raised with them. At least love the deeds of those who help others. If you cannot do it, that is the bare minimum. That is the bare minimum. That's as far as our responsibility towards others is concerned. And finally, our responsibility towards the rest of the creation. Allahu Akbar. Do you know, we have responsibility towards animals also. Do we think animals are creatures that don't have aql, they don't have shu'ur, so we can treat them the way we want? Come to Surah An-Naml and see the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam. When Sulaiman alayhi salam with his army passes by the ant hills, what happens? قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. The queen ant is telling all the ants, "Oh ants, quickly enter inside your homes so that Sulaiman and his army do not trample over you while they do not know." Sulaiman alayhi salam hears this. So he smiles. فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِنْ قَوْلِهَا. He smiles when he hears this. And then he thanks Allah Azza wa Jal. "Oh Allah, thank you for this great blessing that you have enabled me to listen to the communication of animals also." Number one, this ant knew who Sulaiman was. You are telling me the animals don't have intelligence? They also know who the prophets are. They also know who the awliya are. There is an interesting treatise written by the Ikhwan al-Safa. Ikhwan al-Safa was a secretive group of individuals that lived many years ago, many centuries ago. And they have written rasail, meaning treatises, on different subjects. One of the treatises they have written is a lawsuit by animals against humankind. A lawsuit by animals against humankind. They wrote this centuries ago, and it has been translated into English also for those who are interested. And they depict a scenario where the animals are taking human beings to court. And they are complaining in front of the judge, "Human beings treat us like this, and human beings do this to us, and human beings do this to us." Animals have rights. Aside from animals, do we think that the other inanimate objects in this world don't have intelligence? Everything has intelligence. Our own limbs have intelligence. Don't we read in Surah Yasin? اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. We recite this all the time. On the day of Qiyamah, we will seal their mouths, so they will not be able to talk. What will be doing the talking? Their hands will be doing the talking. Their legs will be doing the witnessing. Where did this person go? What did this person do? Our limbs. And that is why the hadith says, جَوَارِحُكُمْ جُنُودُهُ. Your limbs are the army of Allah. Your limbs are the army of Allah. Stones, pebbles, everything in this universe has a level of intellect. It may be a lower level, but it has a level of intellect. And that is why when our Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi came out of the cave of Hira after receiving the revelation, We are told in the narrations that the stones and the pebbles would say, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. The stones and the pebbles. And that is why today we walk with haughtiness and arrogance on this earth. Tomorrow the earth will tell us, weren't you walking on me with pride and arrogance? Today you are sleeping within me. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. Everything does tasbih of Allah. وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُ. You cannot understand the tasbih. And the last point is very important for us today especially, and that is when we're talking about our responsibility towards the creation, we must understand that we have a responsibility towards the environment as well. We have a responsibility. Our sixth Imam, Imam Jaffer al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he says in a narration, لا تطيب السكنى إلا بثلاث بهواء طيب وبماء غريز عذب وبالأرض الخوارة. No place is good for a person to stay unless it has three things. One, clear air, clean air to breathe. Two, clean water to drink, sweet water, clean water to drink. And three, fertile ground to live on. So these three things are just now under attack by human beings with their industries and their pollution. So the first people who need to go green in this world are the Muslims, because we have been taught that we have a responsibility towards our environment, towards our surroundings, towards all the other creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. Please recite one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I will end here, but I feel it is my duty, as this is the final night, to express my gratitude, first and foremost to Allah Azza wa Jal, and secondly to all the mu'mineen of Dar es Salaam Jamaat, and especially to the Fazal Karmali family who have been so gracious in hosting me. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant you all the success in this dunya and in the hereafter, insha'Allah ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.